Wanda Maximoff was born in 1989 in Sokovia to her parents, Oleg and Irina Maximoff. She had a twin brother named Pietro. Without anyone knowing, Wanda was born with the hidden power of chaos magic, which made her the legendary Scarlet Witch. However, her powers were very weak and were expected to fade away over time. As a child, Wanda's family would watch American TV shows, especially sitcoms, to help them learn English. Wanda loved these shows, especially the Dick Van Dyke Show, and dreamed of having the happy life shown on screen. When Wanda was 10 years old, her father, Oleg, returned home one night during the bombings in Sokovia, and the family sat down to watch the Dick Van Dyke Show, as it was Wanda's favorite. Suddenly, a bomb hit their apartment, killing both her parents instantly. Pietro quickly pulled Wanda under the bed, and as they hid, they saw a second bomb land just 3 feet away from them. Wanda noticed the TV was still on, and she focused on it for comfort. For the next 2 days, they were trapped, staring at the bomb, terrified it would explode, but it never did. Unknowingly, Wanda used her magic to stop it from going off. Eventually, they were rescued. Afterward, Wanda and Pietro were sent to live in a Sokovian orphanage, where they met a child with a skin condition that Wanda remembered clearly. This terrible and traumatic event made Wanda and Pietro hate Tony Stark and, later on, the Avengers. They blamed them for their parents' deaths and wanted to bring them down. The Maximoff twins spent a lot of their lives working toward this goal, even organizing protests against Stark Industries and the Avengers. Because they were so active in these protests, both S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra noticed them. S.H.I.E.L.D. saw them as possible threats, while Hydra saw them as potential allies. By the time Wanda and Pietro were adults, Sokovia had turned into a war zone, with foreign forces, especially from the United States, often invading their streets. The twins joined in many protests and riots to try to push the Americans out of their country. What they didn't know was that Hydra was secretly behind these riots. Hydra was pretending to be S.H.I.E.L.D. and using the chaos in Sokovia to hide their experiments. In 2014, during one of these riots, a man named List approached Wanda and Pietro. He offered them a way to gain the power they needed to stop the war in Sokovia. At first, Wanda was unsure, but Pietro convinced her to go through with the experiments to gain new powers. Along with other people from their town, Wanda and Pietro were put through several tests by List and Baron Strucker. They were exposed to energy from the scepter, which killed all the other volunteers. However, the Maximoff twins survived, but with very different effects. During one test, Wanda's hidden powers were awakened when the Mind Stone came out of the scepter and floated toward her, showing her a vision of the Scarlet Witch. After seeing this vision, Wanda passed out. The scientists placed Wanda in a cell to keep her isolated, and when she woke up, she noticed a TV in the room. She asked to watch the Brady Bunch and used the show to help calm down and recover from what had just happened. The power of the scepter awakened hidden supernatural abilities in both Wanda and Pietro. Pietro gained super speed, while Wanda developed several mental powers. What Wanda didn't know at the time was that the event also activated and strengthened the chaos magic inside her, making her the Scarlet Witch from the legend. The Avengers arrived in Sokovia and attacked the Hydra research base, taking the scepter and capturing Baron Strucker. During the chaos, Wanda and Pietro escaped from their cells. Even though they were still new to using their powers, they managed to avoid the Avengers and get away. While Pietro went outside to fight Hawkeye, Wanda stayed inside to protect Strucker. When Captain America cornered Strucker, Strucker tried to surrender. But Wanda quietly approached Captain America from behind and used her powers to push him down the stairs. In the chaos, Wanda slipped away through a doorway. Captain America then informed the Avengers about another enhanced person working with Hydra before knocking out Strucker and taking him into custody. Wanda used her powers to momentarily distract Tony Stark, making him think that a dead Leviathan that Strucker had been studying was still alive. She also gave Stark a dark vision where the Avengers were dead, and the Chitauri were invading Earth through a wormhole. After seeing Stark's deepest fear, leading humanity toward global destruction, Wanda decided to let him and the Avengers take the scepter, even though Pietro disagreed. She hoped that Stark messing with the alien weapon would eventually cause his own downfall. After Hydra's base was destroyed and Baron Strucker was captured, Wanda and Pietro returned to Sokovia. To support them, Pietro became a thief. One night, Wanda saw Pietro giving away things he had stolen, including a fancy Parisian dress for a woman named Drinka. She teased him for trying to flirt with all the women in Sokovia and warned that he might get shot if he kept stealing. As Pietro started questioning Wanda's choice to let Tony Stark go, a man named Costel came up to them and said that Iron Man was waiting for them in a nearby church. The twins went to the church and found a mysterious man in a red cloak who talked about how much he liked the church. Wanda became suspicious and wondered why she couldn't read his mind. The man then revealed himself as Ultron, an AI that Tony Stark had accidentally created, which had turned against him and started a deadly mission to destroy the Avengers. Ultron then took Wanda and Pietro out of the church and back to the Hydra research base. Ultron revealed that he had taken control of the Hydra base and was using it to build an army of Ultron sentries. The three of them discussed why they wanted to kill the Avengers. Pietro explained how they had lost their parents because of a Stark Industries missile, and Wanda added that they had almost died because of Stark as well. Though they were unsure at first, Ultron convinced the twins to use their powers to destroy the Avengers. He pointed out that while he and Pietro could physically harm them, Wanda had the ability to tear them apart from the inside. Agreeing to work with Ultron, the Maximoff twins joined him in getting vibranium from Ulysses Clow. Wanda and Pietro arrived at the salvage yard first, turned off the lights, and disarmed Clow before confronting him. However, Clow wasn't impressed by them. He had already heard about the twins and expressed sadness over Baron Strucker's death. Then, he mocked Wanda and Pietro for their reaction to finding out their mentor had been killed. Clow eventually told Wanda and Pietro that he wouldn't respect them if Wanda used her powers to make him see his fear, a cuttlefish, and demanded to speak to the person in charge. In response, Ultron threw Clow through a window and introduced himself. Ultron then forced Clow to sell his vibranium stockpile, paying him billions of dollars. However, when Clow insulted Ultron, the robot cut off Clow's arm and kicked him down the stairs. Meanwhile, Wanda used her powers to prevent Clow's men from fighting back. When the Avengers showed up to stop them, Ultron and the Maximoff twins mocked their efforts, ignoring Captain America's plea for the twins to walk away while they still could. Ultron attacked the Avengers, and the twins joined the battle. In the middle of the fight, Wanda used her powers to knock Captain America back and began using her hex abilities to manipulate the minds of Thor, Black Widow, and Captain America. She tried to do the same to Hawkeye, but he stopped her by pressing a taser arrow to her forehead, subduing her. Pietro rescued Wanda just in time, throwing Hawkeye through a window and carrying her outside Clow's base to recover. Despite the pain from the taser arrow, Wanda was determined to finish their plan. She spotted Bruce Banner and used her powers to hex him, causing him to turn into the Hulk and go on a rampage in Johannesburg, forcing Iron Man to fight him. During the chaos, Wanda and Pietro escaped with Ultron and the vibranium, heading to Seoul. When the trio reached Seoul, Ultron used the scepter to control Helen Cho, making her use the vibranium and the regeneration cradle to create a new, stronger body for him. While Ultron's consciousness was being uploaded into this body, Wanda took the chance to explore his mind and was shocked to discover his true plans, which involved wiping out all of humanity. She freed Cho from Ultron's control to stop the creation of his new body. Then, along with Pietro, she left Ultron and ran away from the facility, much to Ultron's frustration. The twins attempted to escape Seoul, but as they made their way through the city, they spotted a news report showing that the Avengers were battling Ultron and his army in the middle of the city, endangering thousands of lives. Refusing to allow the people of Seoul to be put in danger, the Maximoffs decided to help the Avengers. They eventually caught up and assisted Captain America in fighting off Ultron on a moving passenger train. Maximoff used her powers to put a defensive barrier between Ultron and Rogers by twisting the metal bars inside the train while Pietro knocked him down. Upon seeing that he was betrayed and outnumbered by his former teammates, Ultron responded by destroying the controls of the train before flying out the side door and escaping, leaving the Maximoffs and Rogers on the train going full speed as it headed to the end of the tracks. With the train now completely out of control and heading to the middle of the city, Rogers ordered Maximoff to stop it, while Pietro moved any civilians out of its path. Mustering up all of her telekinetic power and strength, Maximoff lifted the train's wheels off the ground and applied the brakes as hard as she could. Although the train was slowing down, it still crashed through buildings. Pietro was able to save the lives of the people in the way until the train was finally stopped in its tracks. With the train now stopped, Maximoff ran to her brother's aid, as he could barely stand after running so fast for so long. When Rogers revealed that the regeneration cradle and Ultron's would-be body had been sent to Tony Stark for analysis, Maximoff was disturbed, aware that Stark would attempt to utilize the body rather than destroy it in order to correct his own folly. Although Rogers was reluctant to accept this as a possibility, noting that Stark was not crazy, Maximoff compared Stark and Ultron and made key comparisons with their mindsets. The Maximoff twins then went with Captain America back to the Avengers Tower, where Wanda's fear turned out to be true. Tony Stark and Bruce Banner were trying to upload Jarvis's consciousness into the new body. After a short struggle, Banner tried to hold Wanda back, but she broke free and saw Thor bringing the new body to life. Wanda watched in fear as the new being first attacked Thor, but then calmed down while looking over New York City. The being introduced itself as Vision. The Maximoffs and the Avengers remained cautious of Vision, and Wanda mentioned that she had seen the world's destruction in his mind. Eventually, Vision convinced the team that he was on their side and showed his worthiness by lifting Mjolnir and giving it to Thor. Wanda and Pietro then decided to join the Avengers to stop Ultron and save Sokovia, where he planned to carry out his final scheme. The Maximoffs got new uniforms and boarded the Quinjet as Rogers gave a speech, telling the team that their main goal was to get the innocent people of Sokovia to safety before Ultron could destroy their homes and lives. Wanting to save her friends in her hometown, Wanda chose to work with her former enemies, although she was uncertain about trusting the Avengers for the long term. Upon arriving in Sokovia, Maximoff played a significant part in evaluating civilians from Novigrad, using her powers of mind control on dozens of innocents at once and leading them safely from the war zone. When the army of Ultron sentries began their attack, Maximoff took up a defensive position on a bridge, shielding innocent civilians from enemy fire with her powers as they ran to safety. However, the firepower of the sentries proved too strong and knocked her back. Eventually, Ultron, using a device forged from the remaining vibranium samples, forced a large part of the city of Novigrad to levitate so that once it reached a certain height, it would cause an extinction-level event once it made an impact with the Earth. As Ultron gave a speech to the people of Sokovia while flying outside the city, Wanda and the rest of the Avengers could only look on in horror as Ultron unleashed his seemingly unstoppable plan. Wanda felt overwhelmed by the destruction happening in the city. Hawkeye helped her find safety in an empty building, away from the Ultron sentries. She was filled with fear and guilt for causing such a disaster in her hometown, feeling responsible and starting to lose hope. However, Hawkeye set her guilt aside for now and told her she needed to make a choice, either stay hidden and wait for her brother to take her to safety or join the fight. Hawkeye told Wanda that if she stepped outside and fought, her past wouldn't matter, and she would become an Avenger. After he went back to fight, Wanda thought about what he said. Feeling more confident from his words, she stepped outside and saved Hawkeye from a group of Ultron sentries by using her powers to pull them apart and toss them across Novigrad. Once they defeated the sentries, they went to Captain America to get ready for their next mission. As they walked through the city, Quicksilver ran in, picked up his sister, and raced across the city while leaving Hawkeye to run behind. Maximoff and Quicksilver ran into the middle of the city and teamed up to assist in the battle by protecting civilians still trapped in the city, running ahead of Sokovian Police Department officers who were pinned down by the Ultron sentries. As Maximoff fired energy blasts at the robots, eliminating multiple at once, Quicksilver ran into the battle but was accidentally grazed in the arm by a police officer despite the chief calling for the police to stop firing. Rogers informed the Avengers that they are leading the civilians to the town hall. He met up with Maximoff and Black Widow, who asked why Maximoff was wearing her jacket. Captain America told her that Maximoff was with them now. Hawkeye then caught up with them and warned that if they got any higher, people would start dropping. Captain America ordered Maximoff to get the civilians out from hiding, and for Hawkeye to watch her back. Soon after, a helicarrier commanded by Nick Fury and Maria Hill came to the Avengers' aid, sending out lifeboats to evaluate the civilians still trapped at the city. Once the transports landed, Maximoff assisted in escorting civilians to the lifeboats that ferried them aboard the flying aircraft carrier, keeping the women and children back until it was safe and ushering them on board alongside Hawkeye. Meanwhile, Fury sent War Machine to protect the lifeboats from any sentries attacking them mid-air. Maximoff, Quicksilver, and the rest of the Avengers regrouped at the church in the center of Novigrad, where Ultron had set up the key to the device that would cause the city to drop. Captain America explained that Ultron must not be allowed to activate the key as it would destroy the city and the planet. As they stood around the key, Ultron hovered outside the church. When Thor challenged him, Ultron showed off his army of hundreds of Ultron sentries. When Ultron unleashed his army upon them, Maximoff and the Avengers put all their might into battling the seemingly endless horde of Ultron sentries, with Maximoff using her gifts to tear apart many at once on the ground, pull them out of the air, and rip them apart from the inside. Eventually, the team managed to wipe out the majority of Ultron's drones, and Ultron himself was almost destroyed by the combined might of Vision, Thor, Iron Man, and the Hulk, who destroyed his armor and sent him across the city. With the battle almost won, Captain America ordered the team to evaluate the city before Iron Man and Thor destroyed the key and Novigrad itself. As the key needed to be guarded against Ultron in the meantime, Maximoff volunteered to stay behind, telling Hawkeye that it was her job to protect it. The team agreed, but Quicksilver insisted that he would not leave her behind, but she ordered him to continue getting the people to the boats and only come back for her at the last minute, insisting she could handle the responsibility. While keeping the Ultron sentries away from the key, Maximoff sensed a terrible thing, as her brother attempted to save Hawkeye and a young boy from Ultron, who had obtained a Quinjet. He was shot and killed by the robot. Sensing this, Maximoff dropped to her knees and cried out in pure anguish, obliterating the sentries she had been fighting with a single blast of energy. Overcome with rage and emotion, Maximoff left her post to avenge her brother, tracking down Ultron, who had been ripped out of the Quinjet by the Hulk and had crash-landed inside a bus. Maximoff knelt beside her former ally, who pleaded with her to escape before she was killed in the approaching explosion. Maximoff told the robot that she had already died due to heartbreak, and to demonstrate this, she telekinetically ripped his core processor from his body. Her action inadvertently allowed a single Ultron drone to activate the device, sending Novigrad plummeting towards Earth with her still trapped inside. Maximoff accepted her fate as she plummeted towards the ground, being the only person left in the city. However, she was rescued at the last minute by Vision. Seconds after their escape, Iron Man and Thor averted the cataclysm by combining their abilities to vaporize the city, saving billions of lives. Afterward, Wanda officially joined the Avengers and moved to the United States. She went to the Avengers compound in New York, where she became part of the new team with James Rhodes, Vision, and Sam Wilson. Wanda was also given a new uniform to wear as an Avenger. They all met in the compound's hangar to start their training under Captain America and Black Widow. Even though she was now an Avenger, Wanda still grieved her brother and often watched sitcoms in her room for comfort. One day, when she sensed Vision nearby, he came in, apologized for disturbing her, but she asked him to stay and watch TV with her. As they watched Malcolm in the Middle, Vision wanted to understand her sadness, thinking it might help her feel better, but Wanda said nothing could except having her brother back. However, she decided to share her feelings, telling Vision how much sorrow she was feeling. Vision, who had never experienced loss, told her that even though she was sad, it was love enduring. His words cheered her up, and Wanda began to develop strong feelings for Vision as they continued watching TV together, enjoying each other's company. About a year after the Ultron offensive, Wanda joined the Avengers on a mission to track down Crossbones and his mercenaries in Lagos, Nigeria. She sat at a cafe, describing the police station nearby, trying to figure out Crossbones' plan as part of her training from Black Widow, who was teaching her spy skills. The team soon learned that Crossbones was planning to attack the Institute for Infectious Diseases, IFID, to steal a biochemical weapon. Captain America ordered them to head to the IFID to stop him. The Avengers quickly moved in, with Captain America arriving first, followed by Falcon and Wanda. They took out the mercenaries outside. Wanda used her powers to lift Captain America to the third floor, where he fought Crossbones, while she vented anesthetic gas from the building. Meanwhile, Falcon and Black Widow took down the remaining mercenaries and secured the biochemical weapon. Captain America and Crossbones engaged in a tough fight, with Captain eventually defeating Crossbones. Crossbones taunted him, saying that the Winter Soldier, under Hydra's control, had hired him to steal the weapon. Wanda arrived just as Crossbones triggered his suicide vest, hoping to kill both himself and Captain America. Wanda quickly contained the explosion around Crossbones and tried to move it away by sending him into the air. Unfortunately, she accidentally caused the explosion to hit a nearby building, killing many people inside. Horrified by what had happened, she broke down in tears on the street, and Black Widow arrived to comfort her. The Avengers returned to the Avengers compound, and a month later, Wanda was still struggling with guilt over the deaths caused by the explosion in Lagos. She watched a news report questioning whether she should have even been involved in Nigeria. Steve Rogers tried to comfort her, saying it wasn't her fault and that he should have disabled Crossbones' suicide vest before it went off. Wanda, still feeling responsible, said they were both at fault. Rogers reminded her that despite the casualties, they had stopped Crossbones from causing even more harm. Their conversation was interrupted by Vision, who phased through the wall again, and Wanda scolded him for not using the door. Vision apologized and told them Tony Stark had arrived with Thaddeus Ross. The Avengers gathered to meet Ross and Stark, who introduced them to the Sokovia Accords. These documents proposed new regulations for enhanced individuals like Wanda. Ross showed footage of the destruction and loss of life that had occurred during previous battles, including the Lagos incident, which only deepened Wanda's guilt. As the Avengers discussed the Accords, Wanda remained unsure about signing but stayed mostly quiet. When Stark mentioned Charlie Spencer, a victim from the Battle of Sokovia, Wanda felt even more uneasy due to her own tragic past. When she raised concerns about being hunted if they didn't sign, Vision reassured her that they would protect her. While the other Avengers went to deal with the Winter Soldier and attend the meeting in Vienna, Wanda stayed at the compound, watched over by Vision. He tried to cheer her up by cooking, though his lack of experience with food left something to be desired. They had a deep conversation about their powers and how people feared them. When Wanda tried to leave the compound, Vision stopped her, explaining that Stark had asked him to keep her there until the Accords were settled. Wanda questioned what Vision wanted from her confinement, and he gently assured her that he just wanted the world to see her the way he did, fondly. Later, Steve Rogers sent Clint Barton to the Avengers compound to get Wanda, who was being watched by Vision. Barton caused an explosion outside to distract Vision. While Wanda was watching Vision, she sensed someone behind her and threw a knife, but stopped when she realized it was Barton. He told her that Captain America needed their help to fight against the Sokovia Accords. As they were about to leave, Vision returned and blocked their way. Barton's trap went off, temporarily shocking Vision with electricity. As Barton tried to leave again, Wanda hesitated, feeling guilty for the damage she had already caused. Barton encouraged her to take action if she wanted to make things right. Just then, Vision broke free, and he and Barton started to fight. Vision quickly overpowered Barton, but Barton looked to Wanda for help. Wanda told Vision to let Barton go, but Vision said he couldn't let her leave. Wanda used her powers to control the Mind Stone, forcing Vision to release Barton. Vision warned her that leaving would make people fear her, but Wanda replied that she could only control her own fear. She then used her powers to blast Vision deep into the ground, subduing him. With Vision out of the way, Wanda left with Barton, heading to Germany to find Scott Lang. After knocking out Vision, Wanda and Clint Barton went to retrieve Scott Lang, who had been recommended by Sam Wilson. The three of them waited in a van in Berlin until Steve Rogers arrived. Rogers thanked Wanda for supporting him, and she responded by saying she needed to get moving, reflecting what Barton had told her earlier. When they introduced Lang to Rogers, Wanda watched as Lang nervously chatted with Rogers and then complimented her as well. Later, they heard an announcement that the airport was being evaluated because of Tony Stark. The team suited up and headed to Leipzig-Halle Airport to prepare for their trip to Siberia. Captain America and his team headed to Leipzig-Halle Airport, where a helicopter was waiting to take them to Siberia. Knowing Iron Man might try to stop them, they split up. Wanda teamed up with Hawkeye. They hid inside the airport and watched as Captain America got surrounded. Hawkeye shot an arrow to free him from Spider-Man's webs, and the two tried to avoid the fight. But Iron Man spotted them and fired missiles at them as they tried to escape. He confronted Wanda, saying she hurt Vision's feelings, and they argued about why she was locked up. While Iron Man was distracted by Hawkeye, Wanda used her powers to throw cars at Iron Man, trapping him under them and giving them a chance to escape. Wanda and Hawkeye then joined Captain America and his team, aiming to reach the Quinjet to fly to Siberia. Just as they were close, Vision stopped them by firing a laser beam in front of them. Iron Man's team regrouped, and both sides prepared for a fight. The battle between the Avengers began, with both teams charging at each other. Wanda launched herself into the air and targeted Spider-Man by throwing chunks of asphalt and objects at him, but he dodged them. Wanda, being the strongest on her team but not a hand-to-hand fighter, focused on protecting her allies. When Black Widow was about to land a hit on Hawkeye, Wanda used her powers to pull Widow away and told Hawkeye to stop holding back. Then she moved on to help her other friends. When Black Panther attacked Winter Soldier, trying to kill him, Wanda quickly blocked Black Panther's claws before they could hurt Barnes. She then threw Black Panther away to keep Barnes safe. As Iron Man's team pressed on, Falcon realized they could not win the battle and get everyone to Siberia. So, Hawkeye confirmed that only Captain America and Winter Soldier could get to Siberia while the rest of the team stayed behind. To distract Iron Man's team, Ant-Man transformed into Giant Man, focusing the opposition on defeating him rather than stopping Captain America and Barnes from reaching the Quinjet. However, War Machine managed to evade Giant Man and pursued the two until Maximoff started hurling large objects at him, keeping him from reaching the hangar. Vision destroyed a traffic control tower so Captain America and Barnes could not escape, but Maximoff used her powers to hold back the debris for them to pass. Seeing this, War Machine used a Stark sonic cannon to subdue her and bring her down, causing the tower to fall. After the battle, Vision went to check on Maximoff, and they apologized to each other. As Vision comforted Maximoff, War Machine requested Vision's backup in disabling Falcon's wing thrusters. Distracted, Vision accidentally grazed War Machine's arc reactor, disabling the suit and causing him to fall from the sky, paralyzing him upon impact, therefore letting Captain America and Barnes fly away to Siberia. After their defeat, Maximoff, Clint Barton, Sam Wilson, and Scott Lang were arrested by Thaddeus Ross and imprisoned in the raft. Maximoff was the only one outfitted with a shock collar and put in a straitjacket to prevent her using her powers. When Tony Stark visited the prison, he was disturbed to see Maximoff's condition. One night in 2018, Vision began to feel an alert from the Mind Stone in his forehead, asking Maximoff to use her powers to feel it. She claimed that all she felt was him, and the two embraced each other. They then went outside, where Maximoff informed Vision of train times so that he could return to the Avengers compound. Vision began suggesting that they form their own life together, which she was unsure about due to the promises they had made to their respective teams. Before she could give her official answer, she saw through a store window a news report about an attack in New York City and a report of Tony Stark being shown missing. When she saw two aliens in the report, she became frightened and asked what they were. Vision then prepared to leave, intending to join the fight, but Maximoff was reluctant to let him leave because she knew his life would be put at significant risk if the news report was true. Moments before he was about to reply to her, he was brutally stabbed by Corvus Glaive, to Maximoff's horror. She tried to use her powers, but was thrown away into a store by an energy blast from Proxima Midnight. They then began to forcefully remove the stone from Vision's forehead, but Maximoff was able to fight them off. Maximoff attempted to escape with Vision and temporarily hide from Midnight and Glaive before they were found. Maximoff faced Midnight, trying to swerve and block Midnight's spear with her powers, while Vision unsuccessfully fought Glaive on top of a church. When Vision again became subdued, Maximoff rescued him from Glaive and attempted to escape with Vision again by flight, but the two were blasted out of the air by Midnight and cornered in an empty train station. Maximoff prepared to be the final line of defense for Vision, using her powers to form psionic energy in both her palms, until Steve Rogers arrived, joined by Sam Wilson and Natasha Romanoff, who, with relative ease, managed to defeat Midnight and Glaive, but they escaped. Rogers decided that they had to return to the Avengers compound in hopes of developing a plan to help Vision and gaining more information about their extraterrestrial attackers, and Maximoff helped Vision into the Quinjet. Maximoff, Vision, Steve Rogers, Natasha Romanoff, and Sam Wilson arrived at the Avengers compound and reunited with James Rhodes and Bruce Banner. They then discussed the rising threat. Vision came to the conclusion that the only way to make sure that the stone would not be taken was if it was destroyed by Maximoff. However, she rejected this idea, knowing it would kill him in the process. Despite Vision's persistence, Banner produced an alternative idea that entailed removing the stone, keeping Vision alive through the other components of his creation. However, this could not be done by Banner, so Rogers suggested that they go to Wakanda. Maximoff flew via Quinjet with the team to Wakanda. Once there, they sought the aid of Shuri, the sister of T'Challa. As Vision was scanned by Shuri, Maximoff asked if she would be able to remove the stone. She told her that she could, but it would be difficult due to the 2 trillion neurons that needed to be dealt with carefully. Suddenly, a swarm of Outrider dropships landed outside the dome, causing everyone to go outside to defend Vision. Rogers ordered Maximoff to destroy the stone as soon as it was removed from Vision, tasking her to stay there. Maximoff stood by Vision as he underwent the removal of the stone. However, after witnessing the arrival of Threshers, she realized she had to be out there. Maximoff then left and flew out to the battlefield, where she saved Natasha Romanoff and Okoye by stopping the incoming Threshers and threw them on top of the Outriders. However, her presence of the battlefield allowed Proxima Midnight to notify Corvus Glaive that Vision was left unguarded by her. When Sam Wilson pointed out Vision being in danger, Maximoff went to help him, but was struck in the head by Midnight, causing her to fall into a ditch. Midnight then taunted Maximoff as she prepared to kill her, but was stopped when Romanoff and Okoye intervened. The two fought off the alien as Maximoff recovered from the powerful blow she received. As the fight continued, the two found themselves overwhelmed by Midnight, who came close to killing Black Widow. However, Maximoff was able to step in and use her powers to stop Midnight by launching her into an incoming Thresher, ultimately killing her. Following this, she quickly returned to Vision's side to protect him. Maximoff then flew into the forest and found Vision. She comforted him, but he told her the Mind Stone was telling him that Thanos was coming. Steve Rogers rallied the team together and told them to be ready. Maximoff then witnessed a strange wind in the weather and saw a wormhole appear with Thanos walking through. At his arrival, she became frightened, unnerved by what was happening. Bruce Banner then identified him and Rogers told everyone to stay sharp, with Maximoff preparing herself to fight. Maximoff was about to join the fight, but Vision told her that she had to destroy the stone. She continued to refuse to do so, but he begged her to, knowing it was the only way to thwart Thanos' plans. Vision then comforted her as she understood what had to be done, still greatly upset about doing it. He reassured her, stating that she could never hurt him and repeating her earlier words, "I just feel you." In tears, Maximoff reluctantly unleashed a stream of psionic energy into the stone while Rogers, Bucky Barnes, Sam Wilson, Chala, James Rhodes, Natasha Romanoff, and Okoye were defeated by Thanos. Maximoff tearfully watched as Groot made a last attempt to stall Thanos, but was defeated as well. Rogers tried one last time, but was defeated again. As Thanos approached her, she then struck him with a separate stream of energy to stall him further, slowing him down significantly before managing to destroy the stone just as he was about to reach them. Maximoff continued to break down in tears as she used her powers to destroy Vision and the Mind Stone and hold back the Mad Titan. As she begins to break the stone, Vision let a whispered remark of "I love you" to Maximoff as he was dying. The Mind Stone then shattered, releasing a huge blast of energy that knocked Maximoff to the ground and destroyed Vision's body. As Maximoff laid on the ground, heartbroken, Thanos empathized with her pain, understanding the sacrifice of what she most loved. She bitterly stated that he knew nothing. She then watched in horror as Thanos used the Time Stone to restore Vision with the clear intent to rip the Mind Stone from his head. Maximoff attempted to stop him, but Thanos forcefully swatted her aside with little effort and ripped the stone from Vision's head, killing him a second time. Now equipped with the final Mind Stone, the Infinity Gauntlet was complete. With Thanos finally succeeding in his plan of collecting all of the Infinity Stones, he unleashed the full extent of his new power. With a mere snap of his fingers, Thanos began to exterminate half of all lives in the universe in random succession. Maximoff knelt over Vision's lifeless body before disintegrating into dust. 2023, as a result of the blip, Maximoff was restored to life. She, along with the other restored Avengers and Wakandans, were then transported via portal to the ruins of the Avengers compound to join the battle against alternate Thanos and his army. With all heroes united and armies rallied, Steve Rogers led the ensuing charge against Thanos' army. Maximoff used her powers to blast airborne enemies with large bolts of her psionic energy. In the thick of the battle, an enraged Maximoff, with the recollection of Vision's death still fresh in her memory, faced alternate Thanos herself and blamed him for Vision's death. Being an alternate version of his main counterpart, Thanos retorted that he did not know who she was. In response, she taunted him that he would as she rapidly overwhelmed him by hurling enormous piles of debris and powerful blasts of energy. During their skirmish, Maximoff tauntingly smirked at a feigned attempt by Thanos to kill her with his sword, and she fiercely blasted him with a single energy strike, breaking his sword in half. After breaking his double-edged sword in half, Maximoff suspended Thanos in the air, peeling off his armor and slowly tearing him apart. To save himself from her wrath, he was forced to call in an airstrike from the Sanctuary too. Maximoff then tried to shield herself, only to be knocked back by the blasts, sustaining only concussive force. Relief came in the form of Carol Danvers, who destroyed the spaceship with ease. Maximoff joined Danvers as she collected the Nano Gauntlet from Peter Parker and told him not to worry. She then stood alongside Danvers, Okoye, Valkyrie, Pepper Potts, Mantis, Shuri, Nebula, and Hope Van Dyne and breached through the enemy lines to reach Luis Van and the Quantum Tunnel. She cleared a path through a horde of Outriders and single-handedly held back a Leviathan to assist Valkyrie and Warsong. Maximoff continued to take out Thanos' army, using her powers while in flight, mainly defeating the bigger and stronger opponents. After an intense battle, Thanos and his entire army were defeated when Iron Man wielded the stones and snapped the forces out of existence, resulting in his own life being taken. Everyone gathered around the fallen hero and knelt before him, showing their respect. About a week later, a funeral was held for Tony Stark at the Stark Eco Compound, which Maximoff attended along with her fellow Avengers. She stood with Bucky Barnes and Sam Wilson as the funeral proceeded and watched as Pepper Potts and Morgan Stark placed Stark's arc reactor into the river. After the funeral, Maximoff reunited with Clint Barton, who stood by her in silence, thinking of those they had lost. The two stood by the river, and Barton expressed his desire for Natasha Romanoff to know that they were successful. Maximoff assured him that Romanoff did know, as well as Vision, too. Having both recently lost people close to them, Maximoff and Barton both comforted each other, Due to her affiliation with the Avengers and her role in saving the universe, Maximoff was pardoned from her violation of the Sokovia Accords. Maximoff decided to seclude herself and moved into a cabin in an unknown location where she learned more about herself and the powers she possessed. Becoming more confident in her abilities, Maximoff learned about the astral dimension and was able to coexist in two forms. Her physical form performing menial tasks like brewing a cup of tea, while her astral form reading the Darkhold to learn and understand her power. One day, while reading the Darkhold, she heard what seemed to be the cries of her children calling for help. During her exile, Maximoff soon fell to the corruption of the Darkhold, learning of the multiverse and that her children existed in alternate universes. She found out which universe they lived in and saw that they were happy in those universes. Throughout 2024, she began to have dreams every night of her with her children. She relived her last moments with them before waking up and realizing it was a dream. In her search for her children across the multiverse, Maximoff became aware of America Chavez, a supernatural being with the power to travel across the multiverse. Maximoff realized that she could steal Chavez's power to transport her to the universe where her children were alive, so she began sending creatures to capture Chavez. The Darkhold had not only corrupted Maximoff, but also corrupted where she lived, causing it to become a barren landscape with her chaos magic filling the atmosphere. In late 2024, Maximoff used the ribbon creature to capture Chavez, but she escaped. Maximoff learned that Chavez had arrived in her universe, so she sent Gargantos after her in New York City, but she had been rescued by Doctor Strange. Maximoff then deduced that Doctor Strange would come to consult her after seeing that the attacks were a result of witchcraft. Maximoff prepared for his arrival by warping reality on herself and the landscape in order to prevent any suspicion. Maximoff then created sheep and apple trees, in which she went and plucked off tree branches that were of no use. As she did, she was approached by Strange, and she commented that she had known he would show up. Pretending to think that he was there to discuss the events in Westview, Maximoff told him that she had made mistakes and people were hurt, though Strange quickly assured her she had repented by freeing the people of Westview, before telling her that he was not, in fact, there to discuss Westview, but to ask her about her knowledge of the multiverse. She then walked with him and casually commented that Vision had told her of it and his belief that it was both real and dangerous, to Strange's agreement. As they walked, Strange asked her to come to Camartage, saying that he needed the help of an Avenger. Maximoff told him that there were other Avengers, however, Strange told her that only she could be of help, commenting that he couldn't ask people like Hawkeye, or Ant-Man, the Wasp, and Spider-Man for help with the multiverse. Strange then explained to her that he had found a girl who was chased by interdimensional beings. Maximoff asked if he knew her was after her and then suggested he bring America Chavez to her location, only to realize that Strange had never told her Chavez's name. Strange stopped walking and looked suspiciously at Maximoff. Aware that he had deduced Maximoff was the one after Chavez, she unveiled her illusion and revealed that the farm was actually a red hellish barren landscape. She then summoned the Darkhold, much to Strange's surprise. Strange commented how evil the book was and that it could corrupt everything and everyone it touches. Maximoff shook her head and told him that it showed her the truth, that her children lived within the multiverse and that she could use Chavez's powers to get herself to them. Strange stated that Maximoff was messing with reality and how dangerous that was, in which she expresses her contempt towards Strange by questioning his actions in the Infinity War, by giving the Time Stone to Thanos. She then noted that Strange recently messed with reality with the runes of Kafkol and that when he did, he became a hero, while when she did it, she became the enemy, and it didn't seem fair for her. Maximoff then asked Strange to hand over Chavez by sundown, and Strange will never see her again as she would be in another universe. As she walked away, Strange asked what would happen if they rejected her request. She told him that it wouldn't be Wanda who comes for her, but the Scarlet Witch. Maximoff then flew to Camartage in Nepal and created dark billowing clouds in the sky to signal her arrival. Doctor Strange met her in the sky and tried to reason with her. She stated that she had sacrificed everything, recalling how she had killed Vision in hopes of saving the universe from Thanos, and yet, she gained nothing as the snap happened anyway, despite his vain sacrifice. She then flew closer to Strange and bargained that if he gave her what she wanted, she would use the gained powers from Chavez to send him to a universe where he could be with Christine Palmer. However, Strange refused, making her angry, and she shot a blast of chaos magic at him, only to see that magical shields had been put up and that a magical barrier had been formed. Strange then flew back down as she looked for a way to enter. She flew around the magical barrier of Camartage and used her powers to try and break an opening. Realizing that she couldn't, she tried another way and used her astral form to mind control a young sorcerer to run and cause confusion. She was then able to breach the barrier and make herself inside the perimeter, wreak havoc using her hex bolts on Camartage. Maximoff was hit by a blast from one of the cannons, but quickly took it out, knocking out several sorcerers. She then blasted a group off of a building and toppled the building. As she continued, she destroyed the artillery and created serval fires throughout the courtyards. Strange and Wong ran inside yelling at others to fall back. In the chaos, sorcerers perished due to the fires. Maximoff then flew down to the ground, creating a wave of magic that burned any remaining sorcerers who were injured on the ground. She then walked towards the entrance angrily. When she entered the first building, she saw Strange and told him that she had been more than patient. He told her that she would have to go through him, in which she said was fine. As she stepped inside, her foot pressed on a button and she saw the mirror dimension appear around her. Seeing that Strange was an illusion and that he had set up a trap, she became startled by the dimension. She looked around and saw her reflection throughout. She then tried to use her powers to free herself, but it bounced back and forth inside the confined space. Maximoff noticed the mirror shards and the space between them, carefully using her finger to touch it. Finding out that it was a reflective pool, she used the spaces between the shards to look for an exit. As she looked, she took out Hammer and another sorcerer guarding Chavez. As she continued, the reflective pools began getting covered up and she finally found one, seeing Chavez looking down at it. Maximoff then warped her body to crawl out of a gong and into another room where she saw Strange, Wong, and Chavez. Maximoff summoned the Darkhold before them and revealed using her powers several universes that had her children in it, and her variants all were happy. She stated that every morning she had a nightmare knowing that she didn't have them. As she stared down at them, Strange tried to attack her using a spell that produced snake-like beings, but Maximoff swiftly blasted him aside. When Wong stepped forward to combat her, she swatted him aside and knocked him out. She then used her powers to seize Chavez and begin the process of stealing her powers. As Chavez became scared, she involuntarily opened a star-shaped portal. Strange then leaped at Chavez, just as Maximoff struck him, burning a hole in the cloak of levitation, and watched as they fell into the portal. Maximoff was left alone with Wong and used her powers to bind him up back in the courtyard. She then used the Darkhold to begin the dreamwalking ritual, a ritual where she could transfer her consciousness to a counterpart of herself by using Darkhold magic. After a moment of struggle, Maximoff succeeded in possessing a counterpart of herself living on Earth 838 and went to continue with her mission. However, she was stopped when she heard two voices that universes Tommy and Billy. Maximoff was initially hesitant to look at them, but she gave in and became happy to see her children again, as they asked her to watch them perform a song, which she emotionally watched and made her smile. However, she was stopped from the ritual when Sarah Wolf, one of the sorceresses, destroyed the Darkhold. Maximoff watched as Wolf was burnt to death from doing so and then looked at the Darkhold, now disintegrating. Maximoff even tried to keep her possession, but the spell only works if there is a Darkhold, and the Darkhold book had just been destroyed, so the attempt was in vain and her consciousness was brought back to her body. Angry that it was gone, she released Wong and demanded to know where she could find another. Wong refused and stated that she would have to kill him. However, Maximoff instead went outside the courtyard and prepared to kill Rentra, Weasel, Vinny, and Ariane. Wong was then forced to reveal that the destroyed Darkhold was a copy and that it originated from Mount Wundagore, where Maximoff would be able to find the spell she needed. Maximoff, having heard of the place before, took a sling ring from one of the sorcerers and instructed Wong to open an interdimensional portal and take them there. Maximoff and Wong arrived through the interdimensional portal on Mount Wundagore in Eastern Europe and found it to be snowing. When Maximoff saw the Darkhold castle on the top of the mountain on the other side of a gorge, she asked Wong why he didn't portal them closer. He informed her that they were as close as his magic would take them, as the masters of the mystic arts weren't made to be there. Maximoff then used her powers to fly herself and Wong over to the castle. When they went inside, Wong explained that the spells were carved there by the demon Thawne, who had written the Darkhold. As Maximoff lit fires in the castle so they could see, they were ambushed by the elder beasts guarding it. Maximoff and Wong prepared to fight them, only for them to kneel before Maximoff. She watched in confusion and then saw that there was a Scarlet Witch statue behind an altar that she was standing on. Maximoff then realized that this was a throne room for the Scarlet Witch and it was made for her. Wong questioned why she wanted to take America Chavez's power while she could just forcefully tell her to do her bidding, only for her to say it was for the sake of her children so she could protect them anytime they needed her, such as if they got sick. Wong got angry and questioned whether it wasn't enough knowing that her other counterparts were happy with their children. She replied with a no, before throwing Wong out of the castle. She then resumed the dreamwalking ritual. Maximoff dreamwalked to Earth 838 and possessed her alternate self, who had fallen asleep on the couch. She then flew off from the house and out of that universe's Westview to that universe's New York City to the Illuminati headquarters. She broke inside and destroyed the Ultron sentries that came to defend the facility. In doing so, the oil from the sentries splattered over her shirt and the side of her face. Due to this, smoke and fires were started in Maximoff's massacre of the sentries. As she got closer to where America Chavez was imprisoned, she was confronted by members of the Illuminati, Captain Carter, Black Bolt, Mr. Fantastic, and Captain Marvel. Mr. Fantastic told her that he had family as well and understood her pain. She responded asking if his wife was still alive, and he replied yes, in which she remarked that at least one parent would still be alive to raise his children. He told her that Black Bolt could defeat her within seconds with his mouth, in which she asked what he was talking about as she used her chaos magic to remove his mouth. Black Bolt felt for it, and when he could not find it, panicked and screamed inside, causing his brain to fall out within his helmet, and he crumpled over. Mr. Fantastic then stretched out his arm to grab her, only for her to warp his body into strings of rubber, making his head explode in a burst of light. Maximoff then looked at the other two, who braced themselves. Captain Carter and Captain Marvel fought her together, with Maximoff throwing Captain Carter's shield aside. She then lifted a statue and threw it into Captain Marvel, making her crash through a wall. Captain Carter then took Maximoff by surprise by bashing her with her shield. When Maximoff asked if Carter had enough, she responded she could do this all day. Carter then threw her shield at Maximoff, but she caught it with her powers and threw it back at Carter, sending it straight into her abdominals. As Carter fell to the ground, Captain Marvel returned and issued bursts of energy at Maximoff. Maximoff contained it and managed to overpower Captain Marvel by connecting her power to her energy, creating a huge blast. In the blast, Captain Marvel hit her back on a statue and fell to the ground. Maximoff then lifted another statue and made it fall onto Captain Marvel, crushing her. Maximoff then entered the room where Chavez was and prepared to kill Christine Palmer until Professor X appeared. When Maximoff tried to blast him, he used his powers to get inside her subconscious. As he worked to free her alternate self's consciousness, she was stronger and overpowered her variant's subconscious and psychically killed Xavier by snapping his neck. Maximoff then pursued Chavez as she and Palmer ran away. She chased them, along with Dr. Strange, into an underground level. As she hobbled along, Strange and Palmer tried to stop her by closing metal doors in her path, but she blasted through them. At one point, Strange closed the door and Maximoff didn't blast it, but faked them out, frightening them when she appeared suddenly. Strange then told Maximoff to hold her breath as she opened a sewer hole, causing water to come gushing out above her. Maximoff caught up to them at the gap junction, using her powers to pull Chavez's hair. When she had Chavez in her grasp, Strange tried to attack her, but she absorbed and repelled his attack, blasting him and Palmer away, destroying the Book of Vishanti in the process. Maximoff then used her mind control abilities to make Chavez open a portal. She then threw Strange and Palmer into an unknown universe. She then used Chavez's power under her influence to open a portal back to herself and tossed Chavez through the portal before leaving her alternate self's consciousness. Scarlet Witch placed America Chavez on the altar and began the spell to take her powers. Moments later, she was interrupted when Doctor Strange and one of his counterparts' corpse, which had now become zombified, appeared before them. Scarlet Witch called him a hypocrite for using the dream-walking ritual himself and struck him. Strange instead tossed the demons that had attacked him earlier onto her. She became frightened upon seeing the souls of the damned and struggled to fight them off. Wong then made his way back up and helped Strange contain her inside a spell with the demons. However, she eventually broke free and blasted the demons and Wong aside in extreme anger. Scarlet Witch then used her powers against Strange, threatening to kill him. She restrained him, causing him to be immobilized to do anything. As she did, she was caught off guard by Chavez, who jumped off the altar and punched Scarlet Witch backwards. Scarlet Witch glared at Chavez and gave a smirk, showing that she was more powerful. Chavez struck Maximoff a few more times, sending her through portals until she brought her to another realm. As Scarlet Witch looked down the ledge at the dimension, she used her powers to stop Chavez and push her back. Chavez then told her she couldn't beat her and punched her again, sending her to Earth 838 inside the Vision residence. Scarlet Witch grabbed Chavez by the throat and demanded to know what she did, only to see Tommy and Billy on the couch, running away from her in fright. She then witnessed her alternate self run down the stairs to comfort her boys. Scarlet Witch furiously declared that she was the boys' mother and blasted her alternate self away from them. Tommy and Billy then began throwing their toys at Scarlet Witch until she snapped at them to stop, and they fled behind the staircase. She attempted to reach out and comfort the boys, but they pleaded for her not to hurt them. Taken aback, Maximoff insisted she would never do so, tearfully reiterating that she wasn't a monster, but a mother. However, Tommy and Billy's fear of her caused Maximoff to falter as she began to comprehend the many atrocities she had committed. Forced to realize her claims weren't true at all, she backed away. As Maximoff watched the boys run back to her counterpart, she broke down weeping. Now realizing what the power of the Darkhold had done to her and having broken free from its possession, Maximoff finally accepted that her goal was impossible all along and she would never be the boy's real mother. When her other self approached her, Maximoff looked away in shame and part of realizing how she went too far. However, 838 Maximoff comforted her and expressed empathy towards her pain, much to Maximoff's shock. 838 Maximoff reassured her counterpart that Tommy and Billy would be loved in this universe.